so that's kind of a misconception. So betas definitely do not like other betas, and they don't like other fish who kind of resemble themselves. Like they don't like angelfish, but you can have a beta fish in a tank, especially if it's a bigger tank. You can have it in there with like schooling fish. So
Gotcha.
tetras, which are generally kind of faster, but also those gourmies. Um, you can have them in there with those. You definitely can't have it in there with other beta fish,
Gotcha.
um, but that's like angelfish. Angelfish are assholes too, and normally you can't have them with certain type of fish, but you can do like one angel with a school of like little mollies or tetras or things. Um,
All of my knowledge on beta fish goes back to that movie Rumblefish by Matt Dillon in the 80s.
that is not just a movie, sir. Have you read that book?
I never did read the book, no.
Yeah, so Rumblefish was actually written by S.C. Hinton, who also wrote The Outsiders.
Outsiders, yeah.
Uh-huh. It's funny, actually got into it's topical and didn't plan on going down this road. S.C. Hinton actually caused a kerfluffle on the Twitters about 2 weeks ago, week ago. I don't know. Time doesn't move the way it should move anymore. But somebody got on Twitter and was like, talking to S.C. Hinton and was just like, hey, like, it would be great if you let this get adapted into comics. And she was just like, no, it's in the medium that it needs to be in. I don't think it needs to, like, this isn't made for, like, I forget the exact way she worded it, but essentially I don't think she meant much harm, but the way she worded it was very like looking down on comics, to which the internet did its thing and everybody got on there and was like, dude, like, comics are an amazing medium. They really help people read. They're good for like helping people learn to read, but they're also, for expert readers, like don't poo-poo a whole medium. If you don't want your work adapted to that, that's cool, but you can't say it's because the medium is lackluster. To which S.C. Hinton said, hey, you know what? You make really good points. And I've never seen this happen on the internet before. Said, you're right. Like I kind of retract my statement. I'm kind of going back. Like I see the value of comics and sequential art, and I didn't mean to hit the whole medium. If somebody else wanted to adapt this, that's fine, but I don't want to adapt this. It was essentially what she was meaning to say. And, I thought that was kind of a neat thing. That's not something you see too often.
Well,
I've seen a couple instances of that. Similar to that, I saw a Twitter exchange between a UFC fighter and a fan, where the UFC fighter, something had happened in his most recent fight, and a fan got on there and was talking trash to him about it, criticizing his last fight. And the UFC fighter said, well, stand in front of me and say that. And the fan said, no, I wouldn't do that because you'd kick my ass. That's why I'm talking shit on Twitter. The UFC fighter's response was, the UFC fighter's response was, fair enough. That was the end. That's awesome.
Oh, that's funny. Speaking of people bashing athletes on the social medias, a bunch of Dodgers fans got on and started wishing that death on their closer after last night's game.
Jesus.
Because classiness, yeah. Wishing Tommy John surgery on them and, the more extreme death. I'm like, yeah, okay. You guys are classy.
You gotta, like, I can't, like,
and it wasn't even the closer's fault. He's not the center fielder that dropped the ball.
I love sports. I can't imagine ever getting so angry at a sport that I want a human to die.
Yeah.
Like don't get me wrong, I'm a Cowboys fan and I would love it if Jerry Jones would retire, but I'm not saying I want him to take a dirt nap.
Or to have a, potential career-ending injury.
Right. Like that's not something like I just want him to like not be in charge of my mental health and happiness anymore. I just don't want him to get, you don't put the bad juju in the world. Like that's just a shitty indication of where the world is today. And
it's always been that way. That's been that way since sports have been a thing.
No, I know. I
think it's just more available.
I think what I'm saying is like now that one of the major issues is that the internet comes with almost no repercussions. And like that's I think you see a lot more of it. or at least
Well, it's easier.
Yeah, it's easier and it's more visible. So
I would not have any social media if I was in the public light. Maybe one ran by my social media handler or something, but nothing I would look at.
Nah, fuck that. If I'm famous, I'm gonna be the Dennis Rodman of the internet. Fuck everybody. So
I assume Lance Trust Design had a pretty massive following. Not true?
Oh yeah, huge. No. My 4 customers know how to get a hold of me.
Well, hey, you guys want to talk about some comics today?
Let's do it.
I suppose we're here.
I think we might as well. Why not? We have gathered here on this wonderful Sunday morning to record another exciting and fun-filled and energetic episode of the Southern Fried Geekery podcast. If I'm not mistaken, this looks like episode 148, which is wild to me. Seriously, the fact that we've recorded 148. The fact that we recorded 48 episodes was kind of mind-blowing. Now we're approaching 150. And that's crazy. And speaking of crazy, I am Caleb Alexander McKenzie.
Matt Trogdon.
I'm Craig Lance.
How's your week been, guys?
Oh, about like all the other weeks in 2020.
So that's fair.
I had pictures taken of the inside of my heart. I don't know what they show yet, but the pictures have been taken.
I assume they're just all black.
Yes, like my soul.
I actually want one so we can do the Iron Man thing and make a plaque out of it that says proof that Craig Lance has a heart.
Yeah. I did get to see it beat, so it's still working.
That's kind of cool. That's kind of good to know.
Yeah.
I had a ultrasound done on my heart back when I was in my late teens, and that was kind of unsettling to watch your heartbeat on the TV screen.
Yeah, that's what this was. What is it? An echocardiogram? Not an EKG, but the ultrasound version. Yeah, that's what I had done. It is a little bit unsettling to watch your heartbeat.
I mean, it beats the alternative. So,
well, I mean, yeah, it would be really weird if they're doing it and my heart stopped beating.
It's like, hey,
that
Craig,
would have been really weird.
You've got a problem. This thing is not working, and maybe we should stop looking at it and save your life.
Yeah.
Well, my week has gone about as all the weeks go, kind of like Craig said, pushing through. School's still happening. The hubs have been working a lot. Hadn't got to read much comics, but I have read some. Have had time to kick in a few specific some ones that I have not talked about or spoken about on the show. I don't think so. Have you guys been reading the Ta-Nehisi Coates, Daniel Acuna, Captain America line?
I have.
I have not. I read the first couple of arcs and dropped off.
So the entire run has kind of ebbed and flowed for me. It's had some bright moments and it's had lots of peaks and valleys, but right now it's in my opinion anyway, it's kind of at a peak. I love what's happening in this book, and part of that is just the way Daniel Acuna draws it. It's really gorgeous. So just to by way of a benefit to anybody who's listening, we are going to talk about several comics on this show. Not in our short stacks. Rarely do we get into enough detail that anything could be spoilers, but just in case, spoiler warning. So don't get mad at us. But in Coates' Captain America, they have been playing up, the agent formerly known as Agent 13, and kind of made her into a super soldier. And in this episode, you really get to see a lot of it because, at one point they were both old. Captain America was old man Cap, and she's also, just been doing her own thing, but there's been kind of an ebb and flow there. Anyway, so she's taken her own little version of the super soldier serum. And in this issue was a whole lot of them just sparring, and, they went from fighting, play fighting, but, rough and tumble, to fucking. And it was kind of, look, on one hand, it's cool to see that version of Cap instead of just being either the all military guy or the super soldier, the all Avengers. To see him doing this kind of thing where he's relaxed and just kind of like a dude at the gym. or a dude at the gym like talking to his lady, like that was cool. And also the sexy times. I'm glad to know that my boy's getting it, but it's just it's nice to see him like get those moments where it's not all business. It's good to see him get some fun. Plus the the Red Hood is really not Red Hood. The Red Skull is always in the background, or at least in the background of this latest run, and trying to break out. And it's still to this day, Red Skull is one of my favorite Cap villains. So I love
Imagine that, a Captain America book that the Red Skull is the bad guy in.
right, but it's something a little bit different. They're not being super assertive with it.
Yeah, I mean,
he's
it can be done well.
Yeah, it's more the man behind the curtain in a sense
Gotcha.
right now, which is not something they've done a whole lot. There's been stuff done like that before, so it's not treading any new ground, but it's still a good version of that thing.
Yeah, I thought this issue was the best one that's in a while.
Yeah, in a long time. Yeah. It really kicked off and went well. I also went to my shelf because this is not going to be an episode where we talk about we really dive into a single book, but I've been trying to read like Halloweeny type things lately. Some horror, some fun horror, some meant to scare you horror, just kind of whatever. But I went back to my shelf and I realized I had a book sitting on my shelf that I have not read yet, and I needed to. And it's a DC book. It's Batman: Night of the Monster Men. So I pulled it off the shelf, and this was a 6-issue miniseries that took place kind of right in the middle of Tom King's run. But this one's actually not written mostly by Tom King. Tom King like helped script a version of it, but for the most part, it was written by Steve Orlando. But in the 6 issues, they got 3 different artists to do 2 issues a piece. The standout, and for my money, who's always going to be a standout, is Riley Rossmo. Seeing Riley Rossmo draw Batman, and then in this case, the entire Bat family, plus these giant like kaiju creatures, was super cool. And the story's not all that in depth. Hugo Strange is the bad guy, and he makes a formula that makes people turn into giant weird kaiju monsters, and they wreck Gotham, and they have to, the Bat family has to kick in and save the day. But it was still really fun. It was great seeing all the artists on there. And like I said, I never get tired of seeing Riley Rossmo. Never get tired of seeing him draw these characters. Rohei Antonio and Andy McDonald were also they were the other 2 artists on that book, and Andy McDonald was probably my second favorite. And that's not to say anything bad about Rohei, but you look at these and you can definitely tell there was and it could be just aesthetic taste. It could just be my personal taste, but I just think that there was a hierarchy of craft in this book, and it kind of made the entire book, again, like I said, kind of peak and valley. You're just like, oh, okay, like Riley Rossmo is kicking you up on a really high note, and then you just kind of step down. But then there's Riley again, but then you just kind of step down.
If I'm not mistaken, this was kind of a mini crossover that they did in the Bat Family books.
Yeah, I want to say, I'm not. I think maybe Tynan was doing the Detective Comics run at this time. I could be wrong on that.
Yeah.
And it was when it was, Clayface plays a big part in this book too. So it was
right.
It was before, it was before Batwoman did some shit that kind of broke up the Bat family for a little bit. So I don't know. It was cool. It was fun. It was a quick read. It didn't take me a long time. And as far as what I've got to read this week, those are by and large the 2 standouts, short of the last issue of Killing Red Sonja, which I loved. It was fun to wrap that up. I've been really enjoying that little miniseries.
I kind of fell off of the Killing Red Sonja, and I'm not sure why, but I did.
It's got a way
different... Yep, I've been liking it.
It's got a way different feel than the main Red Sonja book.
Yep.
So which
I kind of fell off of that book as well. So not sure why. I felt a lot of the independent books during the downtime of COVID, I kind of fell off of them.
Yeah.
I'll get back to them, but yeah.
The Killing Red Sonja book is fun because it's got a little bit more of a lighthearted feel. We always talk about the the spectrum that you get with that particular writer, whose name is escaping me right now because I don't have it sitting in front of me. Shame
Mark
on me.
Russell.
Yeah, Mark Russell. We always talk about the spectrum that you get with him. This is more on the comedic, lighthearted part of it, but in saying that, it's also insanely brutal. And it juxtaposes like these, kind of elementary age kid trying to figure out life, trying not to be something that he's got no choice into being. Like he keeps getting thrown these curveballs that turn him into a monster, so to speak. Plus, there's a talking pig, which is cool. So you get your Pumbaa fix out of Mark Russell. So, and I didn't know I needed Mark Russell to write Pumbaa, but I did.
There you go. Matt, what did you read this week?
So there's some standouts for me. All right, let's just get this out of the way, because I if I don't talk about this, it's going to be the elephant in the room. So I read from Boom Studios, Dune, House Atreides. Exactly. Brian Herbert, Kevin Anderson, Dev Premanik, and Alex Guillermirez. Sigh. So don't if you read this, kids, this is not your daddy's Dune. Next, I'm from the X of Swords series, the Hellions edition. So this is a Hellion. This would be Hellions number 5, X of Swords part 6. So this was the first Hellions, the new Hellion series. Anything I've read of that. This was really, really good. I went into this expecting to just have to make my way through it to stay current on the story, but I really dug this issue.
Nice.
I'm wanting to go back and check out the rest of the series now. This guy Zeb Wells is writing Sinister really, really well. Carmen Carnero is the artist, and David Curiel is the colorist. Me and Mike Nelson were actually talking about this. I asked him, I was like, dude, did you read Hellions for the X of Swords? He's like, man, it was amazing. I was like, I know. I couldn't believe it, how good it was. So yeah, that was really cool to go into that with low to no expectations and to really enjoy it. And then thirdly, I want to mention from DC, Batman number 101. Same creative team, James Tynan the fourth. Gilliam Marsh is the artist, and Tomu Mori is colors. Mm-hmm. This is taking a very interesting turn in my eyes, because the theme seems to be that Batman's going to do his thing with as little tech as possible. So I'm really interested to see on, how Batman does his Batman thing without the cave and all its gadgets. I can only imagine this is going to turn into a much more stripped down street level vigilante type stuff. And we're going to see more traditional detective work. That's the only sense I can make out of not having all the gadgets and stuff. So I'm really, really looking forward to this next arc based on that.
Yeah, I am too. I read that issue, and I came away with kind of the same thing. Lucius Fox has all of Batman's billions, all of Bruce Wayne's billions now.
Yeah.
He says, well, I could give it back to you, but that would be problematic for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I agree. I'm interested to see where this is going, because it's not going to be, and he kind of sets that up at the beginning of the book, right? This is the formula for all the Batman books. He gives you that, then it's like, but we're not going to do that anymore. So very interested to see where that goes.
I need to dip back in and check out Hellions, because I didn't realize, I guess that's where Sinister's been hiding at. And this version of Sinister that they're writing in this new X-Men, under the umbrella of Hickman is one of my favorite things about it. Sassy Sinister cracks me up.
Oh man, Zeb Wells is killing it writing Sinister.
Yeah. That is my favorite thing about this iteration of the X-Men. Is I can't get enough of Sinister, because he's just he gives no fucks. Man, He just doesn't like. He's going to say what's on his mind, and he doesn't care who hears it. And it's this kind of nonchalant disregard for anybody's.
Well, and
Yeah.
we have to keep it. We have to keep in mind that from the House of X, Powers of X stuff, we know that he is actually going to betray everybody at some point too.
Oh, for sure, because he's
so. Well, and it's already been foreshadowed.
Yeah.
So, I read from Marvel Comics Daredevil number 23 from Chip Zdarsky and Marco Cicchetto. I said something that was a little controversial in our group text, and just to clear that up, I did not say that he wrote that Chip Zdarsky is writing Kingpin better, Wilson Fisk better than Frank Miller. I said no one writes Wilson Fisk better than Chip Zdarsky. And as Matt clearly pointed out in our text, he's writing Frank Miller's version of Wilson Fisk, and he's doing it magnificently. There is a scene in this book where he essentially, without the baseball bat, if you think back to my brain just went dead, guys.
The Untouchables.
The Untouchables, yes, where he takes the baseball bat and smashes the guy's head in. Yeah, same sort of scene, except he just does it with his hands. And it was wonderfully done.
Yeah. That
And
was a great issue.
I want to point out that Matt is 2 for 2 in saving our asses this morning and forgetting what we were going to say. So really appreciate Mr. Trot.
Yeah, my brain turned right off in the middle of what I was saying there. It was fantastic. I also read Faithless Volume 2, Number 5 by Brian Azzarello and Maria Lovett. Did you read this issue yet, Caleb?
I have not. It's sitting on my stack. I cannot wait to get to it, but I'm going to have to wait to get to it.
Yeah, it was a complete mindfuck. And I honestly, at one point, was like, I don't know what's happening, but it's beautiful. But then it kind of explained that she was still on drugs. So I was okay that I didn't understand, because she didn't understand what was happening. So, but just another magnificent issue in this book, in this series. The other book I read is Something is Killing the Children, number 11, James Tynan and Werther Deladera. This book is, I know I talk about it a lot, but this is going to end up being on my very, very short list of best horror books of the year.
Nice.
Just continues to be, every issue is really good. Out of the 11 issues so far, I haven't had one that I've been like, that was just so.
I missed the bus on that one, and it's one of those that
me too.
I really do regret missing the bus on it, because I knew it was going to be at least a decent read. I knew I wouldn't regret reading it. But apparently it's just the fucking cat's meow or something, because this like, it's all people are talking about on different groups and stuff. So I'm going to have to like get the collected edition.
Yeah, you really should, because it's got kind of a secret society. You've got this monsters going on, and the only people that can see the monsters are the kids. Adults can't see it, but yet they just saw this little girl just get ripped to shreds in front of the entire town.
Well, and
so, yeah. So,
and we know Tynan's good, right? Like, so we, as far as I can't speak to the art because I haven't read it, but like, we know Tynan is
the art's beautiful in this book.
Oh, I can only imagine. Like I said, people are raving on it. I just, like I said, I haven't seen it, but like, Tynan's a quality writer. Most of what I've read of his has been, DC work, his Batman and his detective, and everything he's doing in that.
Did you read The Woods?
Well, I was going to say that's the only independent stuff I've read of his, and I absolutely love it. And so I don't know why, like, my enjoyment of The Woods hasn't equated to me picking up more of his independent stuff, especially because, like I said, throughout this year, I've kind of been, we ride this roller coaster of where our attention goes. Right now, I'm in this space to where like superheroes and capes and tights aren't really doing it for me. And so I don't know why I wouldn't have why I don't say, hey, I love the work that they're doing over here at the Big Two, but I really don't care about Big Two stuff a whole lot right now. Let me go check out the work he's doing at Boom or at Vault Comics or at any of these other places. That's just, I'm slapping my own hand.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about slapping your own hand, but you should pick it up when you can on a collected edition because it is definitely worth the read. I mean, there's a lot of stuff out there to be able to pick all of it up and read or sample all of it is very hard to do. So, we get what we like or what we think we're going to like, and sometimes we miss out on some stuff. But I'm telling you, you should pick this one up.
Oh, it's on my list. It's definitely on my list. You know what makes it easier though to pick up stuff that you might have missed? And I'm going to give a shout out to our local comic shop, Kapow Comics over in Sherwood, because it makes it real easy to pick up stuff that you've missed when they have this cool little table that's sitting out there right in front that's got like used trade paperbacks or stuff that maybe just didn't sell for $5. Like we're talking like collected editions that you can grab for $5. So if you're in Central Arkansas and you're balling on a budget right now and maybe you need some new stuff to read, but you don't want to break the bank, you can spend like $15 and get like 18 comics, or 3 different stories. I've been grabbing little bits and pieces every time I go in because, like I said, it's $5. It's for the price you're going to pay for one comic off the shelf. You get a whole collected edition. So this week, let me reach over here and grab it real quick. This week, I actually grabbed 2 different books off the $5 shelf. One of them was Jim Zub and Cummings' Wayward from Image Comics, which I have not read. Snagged that for $5. And then, Matt, this is going to make you just smile from ear to little ear. I got Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips' Criminal Volume 1 Coward for $5, which I have not read.
You made a wise decision.
I felt like I did. So, I'm curious about this book by Zub because as we were talking, and this goes into some other comic stuff, Jim Zub's Conan has not been that enticing to us. I haven't been enjoying it, but I like other stuff that Jim Zub did, and so I'm curious to see what he does with this Wayward book, which has a terrifying little girl being followed by lots of kitty cats on the cover. So
Wayward's very good, by the way.
That makes
me happy. It's one I pimped for quite a while on the show back when our previous iteration of the show.
Right.
It's got a very anime feel, but it's done really, really well.
That may be where I know it from then, because I knew I'd heard of it, and I just couldn't remember if you had told me about it or what. But
yeah, it's a the girl is of Japanese and Irish descent, so it's got folklore from both Ireland and Japan in it. So yeah, it's very interesting.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, so like I said, if you're in Central Arkansas, you want to pick up some book on the cheap, go check out our friendly neighborhood comic shop, Kapow Comics, over in Sherwood off Kill Avenue. Tell them we sent you. They won't give you a discount, and they'll probably talk shit about us, but that's what friends do. So, and hopefully we will get back to recording live in studio there fairly soon. I miss seeing you guys. I miss sitting at the table with you.
I get the point. I will continue to work on getting the key.
No, I wasn't saying that. I was just saying I miss your company. That was not me. That was not what that was. Mainly because I would love to see both of your expressions while we talk about this book that we all read this week.
Yeah. We did read a book.
I would love to see like the the furrows in your brow and the cackling and the laughing while we talk about it. Every week, if you are a new listener to the show and you don't know what's coming down the pipeline, you're like, wow, they were just kind of all over the place with each talking about 3 little books and everything. We dig into a book a little deeper than what we normally do. We call it a round table because we set it in the middle and we all take turns sticking a fork in it till it's done. And it's sometimes it's great. Sometimes we're all on the same page about how this book was amazing and it's the best thing ever. And sometimes, you get 1 out of 3 who didn't like it or 1 out of 3 who did like it. And it kind of gives a different perspective and a different viewpoint on on whatever piece of pop culture we're reading that week. This week, Matt Trogdon, who was woefully absent last week, decided to reclaim his space at the pinnacle of our little triad of podcasters by proclaiming that this book he would accept nothing else but the Scumbag, the world's the Scumbag, the book about the world's fate resting with the worst person on it. This is written well by Mr. Rick Remender, and this particular issue is drawn by Louis Lerosa. So if I'm not mistaken, each issue is going to have a different artist team on it. I don't know if the colorist is getting pulled all the way through, but like I know, I forget who's going to be on the second issue, but they're like each issue is going to have a different person drawing it, which is a neat take. I wonder how it's going to pull through as a finished product, but we'll get to that. I should also say Moreno Dinisio is doing the colors on this book. So before we get into it, before we start carving this bad boy up, what did you guys think about the book?
I like the book.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I loved it. I was absolutely sold. There's one particular scene that we'll talk about after you give your breakthrough that I knew that from that point on, this was a book for me.
Nice. I enjoyed it. I did not enjoy it, but I just enjoyed it. It was just kind of a medium line for me. I read it, and I'm not overly in love with it the way that it sounds like that you were, Craig, but I think I just enjoyed it. Like I won't poo poo on it. It's definitely, it was a fun read, very fast paced, but so this book is about this character, as most books are. That's not unique to this book particular. Lots of books have characters, but this particular guy, his name's Ernie Ray, and Ernie Ray looks and acts exactly like you would think somebody named Ernie Ray looks and acts like. He's kind of the worst dude in the world. He's just a ginormous piece of shit. Like they do not get. I mean, it's called Scumbag for a reason, because he is just an abhorrent piece of fuck. Like that's just it doesn't get any worse than this guy. Like he is the gum on the bottom of the shit that you step in.
Tell me when you get to the part that made you not love this book.
Well, we will. Basically, he's the worst dude at every bar. You know what I mean? Like he's just that guy. He's a misogynist. He is rude. He has no morals, no scruples whatsoever. He's the kind of guy that would and does steal money out of a Salvation Army kettle at one point. So he comes walking into this bar, this nightclub, which is like a neighborhood dive bar. I mean, there's roughnecks playing pool. There's ladies who may or not be into their own sort of. I mean, they're selling their bodies at some sense. They're sex workers, doing their own thing. He is some weird conglomeration of a meth head and maybe like Lemmy Kilmster. He just. Yeah, he's white trash personified, and so he's walking into this bar, and he's actually there looking for his buddy, his best friend, his amigo, his compatriot, Spanish Larry. And I should say that they are best friend in nobody's mind but Ernie Ray's. Spanish Larry actually hates this dude and is not his friend as much as he is just a drug dealer. He's sitting at the bar, and Ernie Ray walks up, and he's just like, "Hey man, I need to get my fix. Here's a down payment." And Spanish Larry's just like, dude, I'm not a bank. This isn't a mortgage company. I'm not giving you a loan. We've talked about this. You already owe me a shit ton of money. So yeah, no, I'm not taking your quote unquote down payment. I'm going to keep it because it's fucking money you owe me, but I'm not giving you any dope. I'm not giving you any drugs. And of course he's just like, "Oh, I can't believe you would do this to me. I thought I was your best buddy." So he goes and saunters off. As he's walking by some table, he snatches some poor chick's drink, as she's looking away, and kind of goes about his business. And like I said, he realizes that there's things there for the taking, so he swipes cash out of a Salvation Army bell drum or tip jar or whatever. Like it's meant, it's some feed the kids shit, and takes it back to Spanish Larry and just like, hey, look at this money I found. Isn't it cool? Can I please have drugs now? And Spanish Larry, being a consummate capitalist, decides, well, yes, I will forgive these past sins, and here you go. Here's some crank. And of course, like, our dude's a drug addict, right? Like he's a drug addict and a drunk, and so he's not lying when he says he needs his fix. He's starting to go through withdrawals, and he's getting the bends, and his body's working against him, and he's getting the raging shits. So he gets his stash, and he kind of saunters off. He goes away to go apply his trade, and grabs a spoon and a lighter, and is getting ready to draw up a line and a needle and stick it into his vein. And of course, you look at this and you're like, okay, of course he went to the bathroom, because that's where you would do this at. But no, that's not. Our buddy Ernie Ray does not have the good sense and the politeness to go inject smack into his veins in the privacy of some dirty stall. No, he's gone actually in the middle of the street, in the middle of this busy intersection on the sidewalk, to where he is bent over and his underwear is around his knees, and he is squirting shit out of his.
And this was the scene when I knew I loved this book.
I knew it was. I knew this was going to be it for you, Craig. As I was reading it, I was like, no, this is where Craig really enjoys it. So like this dude is literally in the middle of a busy street where children are walking, and it's cold outside. Like, these people are wearing like winter clothes, except our dude is in a denim cutoff jacket with a do-rag with his pants around his ankles, squirting shit out of his asshole in the middle of public while he's drawing up heroin.
He asked if anyone could spare a wet wipe. What more do you want from the guy?
He didn't ask if anyone could spare a wet wipe. He asked a toddler if he could spare a
There
wet wipe.
is that.
He looks this small child in the windows of her soul while poop is coming out of his nethers, wanting a wet wipe. But something happens, right? He gets bumped. Some force of nature, God, if you will, something happens, and the needle, his needle full of smack, starts rolling away. Right past a Pabst Blue Ribbon can. Because this is where you're at in life. And it rolls into an alley, and our guy just, he can't have this. He's got to kind of scrounge after it. So he goes clamoring for it, and turns the corner down this alley and sees something that's unexpected. There's a fight taking place between a very well dressed, kind of suit and tie, got a little bow tie on, African American man, and a almost Mortal Kombat-esque looking lady who's, there was not a lot of fabric that was wasted in making her suit. Let me just put it that way. She's showing a lot of skin, and is, they're fighting. They're lots of kung fu action. They are whipping each other's asses. But these aren't just any people. Like, you can tell there's something else about them. And her, like, she is apparently the leaders of this little clandestine group called the Scorpionus. And he is none other than, at least nicknamed, Father Time. I don't know if he has any special powers or not, but you can tell that these people are at least possessing some type of like upper level martial arts spy quality shit. They're not just average dude and chick off the street. Of course, while all this is happening, our buddy Ernie Ray is like going into hallucinations, because he is a drug addict, and he's dehydrated, and he's an alcoholic. So actually what he sees is Medusa fighting a leprechaun. Because why not just throw that, like, it made for good imagery. But as they're fighting, right, like, you got to remember the reason that Ernie Ray found himself, pantsless, going into this alley. He's chasing his needle that rolled off. Well, as these two figures are fighting, and the lady, ninja in this is actually getting the upper hand, quite handedly, just kicking Father Time's ass all over the place. She reaches in his coat pocket and pulls out a syringe. And this syringe is filled with like this red liquid, and the needle is not small. This is like a 1 gauge, like this thing would puncture you. And she pulls it out and she's like, this belongs to the Scorpionus now. This is ours. And like we win, like, haha, like you're going to lose because I've got this now. But Father Time isn't going to let this go down without a fight. So he musters up kind of the last bit of life he has to get the upper hand over, and grabs what he thinks is whatever syringe she pulled out of his pocket. Whatever this thing is that's going to give him, some upper hand, some power, and he injects it straight into his heart, like you would do, with somebody who's going into anaphylactic shock. So he just pumps it right into his chest and pulls the trigger on it, and is like, look, you're done. Like, your fascist organization can't beat me. I've just taken this. You're too late. I'm connected. Yeah, I've got it. But it's not what he was looking for. This isn't the needle that he took that was taken out of his jacket pocket. This is Ernie Ray's street smack. Like, this is he just pumped his heart full of really shitty dope, which I'm sure has been stepped on a few times.
Well, I'm sure it was the best of all dope, right?
Something tells me that Spanish Larry
is not selling the high grade.
Yeah, his product leaves something to be desired. But that's what Father Time, codename Father Time, just pumped into his vein, and that gives the leader of the Scorpionistas or Scorpinuses or Scorpiopenuses, whatever they're called, enough time to just grab her gun. I don't know where she was hiding it, but apparently she was. And it also gives him time to pull his gun, and they just kind of shoot each other in the head at the same time. All while Ernie Ray is watching all of this go down, hallucinating, and is pretty sure he just saw Medusa and a leprechaun fuck murder each other to death. And then, of course, at his feet, he looks down and he sees this syringe full of this growing red liquid. He doesn't have the wherewithal to realize it's not his dope, and I don't really think he would care if he did. He grabs it and shoves it into his favorite vein and pumps full of whatever it is. And about the time that he does that, he sees this woman appear in like this blue energy crackle up in front of him, and she's looking for Father Time, and he just is assuming he's having a hallucination. But that's not the case. What he's actually just injected into his veins were a bunch of nanites, a bunch of microscopic technology that basically connected him to super spy Wi-Fi. And she's looking for this guy whose brains are bleeding out all over the street, while all she's finding is poor, disgusting Ernie Ray. But there's an issue, and the reason she was looking for Father Time is because there's a bomb that's about to go off and is about to kill everybody. And I think it's in Chicago, I think is where they're at. And they got to stop it at all costs. They don't have time to call him back up. They don't have literally the fate of everybody rests on little Ernie Ray at this point. And that's where I'll close out my talking about the story. There goes into a good little brief interlude about all the things that Ernie Ray wants to become a super spy, like everything he needs, a couple grand, tickets to a Judas Priest concert, like just the most decrepit things.
A flying Trans Am.
Yeah, just 1980s come back to life is what he's asking for. Because
so Matt, did you pick up that the whole time Caleb's describing this book, he was laughing through the whole thing?
I did pick up on that.
Yeah, so I'm trying to find the part where he didn't love it.
So here's the part where I didn't love it. In a small window, in a small vacuum, I find this entertaining. It was humorous. Remender is a great writer. We know it. I think Lerosa's art is fantastic. He's not my favorite person on the planet, but I think he did a great job with this. There is a significant amount of just humor in the way that he draws that. What I didn't love about it is I just kind of read this before. One of my and we'll get into this later, but one of my favorite television shows is Shameless. And I felt like I was watching Shameless, except for the
Yeah,
Superfly
I
part.
remember when he became a superhero in Shameless.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. Like that part wasn't there, but as far as this characterization, I've done this before, but it's also, this isn't an indication on the quality of the craft of the book, which I think is up there. Like I think is extremely well. I'm not at a place in life, me personally, where I am in any kind of mood to find a redeeming factor in shitty people. And I think that's largely what this book, like, that's part of the humor is that you have to look for in this is like, oh, no, this person's abhorrent. They are the worst that humanity has to offer, flat out.
I
And let's
never
find
got the feeling
something.
that I had to like this guy.
No, I don't
Yeah,
think you, I don't think you have to.
Yeah.
But there's something about the humor in it and the way it presents itself that I'm personally not in the mood for. And that's just me not being in the mood for it. That's no indication on the craft or quality of the book.
Okay. I mean,
So I loved the art in this book. I am a huge Louis Lerosa fan. He's one of these pencilers whose black and whites look better to me than anything that has been colored, any of his work that's been colored. He can take a pretty standard by the numbers script and make it really dynamic with the way he illustrates a panel. He illustrates fight scenes amazingly well. You know, he's been working on Bloodshot for Valiant for a long time. And, you know, I don't care about any given Bloodshot story, but I look at the art and it's amazing stuff. The way he illustrates the fight scenes alone are killer. I became aware of him whenever he penciled the Garth Ennis Punisher Max first story arc, which is very dear to my heart, and just blew my mind with his artwork in that book and his character design. It's incredible. So I was really, Louis LaRosa is really what finalized my decision to actually buy this book.
That's interesting. Knowing that he's not doing the second issue though, is that going to be how does that impact the way you're going to feel about anything going forward?
Well, I don't know. I'll have to read it.
Yeah. Okay. That's fair. Yeah.
And I know that what you just said about the colors, but that LaRosa doesn't need the colors, but man, this was colored beautifully.
Yeah, it looked great. Looked great. It just, the strength of his penciling, I just thought it's worth pointing out. He's just not you can't say that about all pencilers.
Oh, for sure. There's definitely, there's a lot of them that are that way though. So I get what you're saying. Yeah.
But like the fight scene between the two, individuals in the alley, it's just, man, it looks great. Looks great.
What's great about LaRocca is he exists in an artistic space that is both loose but detailed, like highly detailed and yet very interpretive. Like if you're looking at pictures of like Ernie Ray's face, if you're flipping through the panels in here, he could be a lot of people. Like he's not drawing every single wart and oversized pore and stuff, but he puts just enough in there that you get like you can picture a photorealistic version of this human being in your brain. But at the same time, it's he's not filling in every detail. Like he's letting your brain do the work that he needs to do, that your brain needs to do. He's giving you just enough texture to give you everything you want to interpret what he's putting down on the page. And that's a particularly interesting skill set that not a lot of people can pull off. I think it's, and especially in a book like this where, you don't need to see every grain, where you don't, or where it's asking you to take this broad interpretive stance on this world and these characters, and it's giving you just enough of a flavor to that everything is gritty and everything is dirty. I think it's perfect. I really do think it's perfect for this book. I think I have no overall complaints about it. His the lady who comes up in the spy scene is an African American woman who is leading this spy organization meant to save the world, the one that's putting him to the task of becoming a super spy because she has no other options. The way that she is drawn is, she's thick, she's got curves, she's sensuous, but not she's not drawn to be, it's both sensual and respectful. Like, he's not making her a caricature of black women, and I think that's great. Like, I think that's exactly what needs to happen. And she's very emotive with not a lot of space, with not a lot of lines. He's able to pull a whole lot out of that character.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I have zero complaints about this book. I loved everything about it. I mean, it was funny. It had a good story. It's a setup book that doesn't just give you a setup; it gives you a story as well.
Yeah.
So if anything, it reminds me a little bit, and I can't remember the name of the show, but it was the one with the guy that played Shazam, where he gets the spy computer downloaded into his brain.
Chuck,
yes.
Yeah.
A little bit like that, except, picture Chuck as a complete and total douchebag.
I was going to say Chuck was a good person.
Yeah. So maybe if you mix Chuck and Shameless, you might get this book. But yeah, I mean, it was funny. Like I said, there's a story going on that draws you in. I'm interested as to why he's changing artist on every issue. I would assume there's a reason for that, because that's not something you just do just for a gimmick. I don't think. I think you generally do that because there's a reason for it. So,
yeah, Rick Remender has historically been like fiercely loyal to the artist he works with, and will, like, if there's something, like if an artist has a personal issue that interrupts his work, Remender will delay the whole project until that artist can come back. So it is interesting the way the creative team is organized with this series.
Yeah, I can only, like I said, believe that there's a reason structurally for that within the story. But it could just be that he wanted to try it and see what happened if he did a book that way.
Well, there's been other, like, we've seen this in other books, maybe not from Remender, but we've seen it before. Thinking about, what was it, Batman and Robin? I forgot the weekly series. Yeah. It was Batman and Robin Eternal and Batman Eternal. Like, they were all done. Of course, it was that way because it was coming out weekly, and I don't think it was coming out weekly. But in the book I was talking about, the Batman Night of the Monster Men, like, each consecutive issue they use 3 artists, and you got 3 artists in 6 consecutive issues, and neither one, like, it wasn't his work back to back, and it does give a different flavor to it. And we see that some in different books, to where, like, if they're doing a flashback scene, they'll use a different artist. And I can only imagine that it's got to be something with the tone, because Rick Remender is not. He does not strike me, in what I've read before, he does not strike me as a writer who does anything without thinking about it. I think he's a very cerebral person when it comes to crafting his scripts, and to choosing who to work with and when to work with them, and who to apply where. I've listened to him on several interviews, and heard about some of his television writing and what he does. So yeah, I would be. I guarantee that you're right, Craig. I guarantee you he's got in his mind a very specific reason for doing this. That he's going to pull out.
And it could just be as the main character comes more into focus and less out of in the drug world, you know, that would explain having a different artist on everyone, is because he would be seeing the world differently. So presenting it to the reader in the same way.
Now he does ask for a suitcase full of drugs, a la Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. So maybe it's going to be how he sees the world with every different drug he takes.
That could be it as well. So, I forgot that he asked that. Yeah,
that could be interesting.
The best I saw this done was in a Moon Knight series, where they had a different artist for every personality, and they would change artist within the same issue.
Yeah. The Werewolves on the Moon stuff, was that that was Lemire, or was that right
Lemire?
After Lemire?
No, Lemire, I believe, was writing it, and then they had different artists do every different personality for Moon Knight.
Right.
Y'all remember when Punisher invaded the Archie universe?
I do. Yes,
I remember that. I didn't read that.
Yeah, they had they had the normal Archie artist, but the regular Archie artist did not illustrate the Punisher. They brought in John Buscema just to illustrate the Punisher in all the panels.
It's awesome.
Looks amazing. Yeah, it looks amazing. Yeah.
I'm guessing the rest of the book though was the traditional Archie style.
Yeah.
Because he invaded Archie.
Yeah. All Buscema did was illustrate the Punisher in the panels that he was present in.
Was that Peepoy who did the Archie? Was Andrew Peepoy doing the Archie stuff at that time? I forget.
Oh, I couldn't tell you. I've never read an Archie book.
Yeah, that Archie had a stable of artists.
Yeah.
So every issue may have had, because most Archie books back in the day had 3 or 4 stories in them. So I don't know who did the art on the Archie Punisher book though.
I'm really hoping, and I don't know that I'm going to see it if it does. I would have liked for them to stick around in the bar a little bit longer than what they did in this book.
Okay.
That seemed like, well, no, because like it reminds me of these like neighborhood dive bars to, see how this dude just kind of lives in the world, and it a little bit just in the way that the people were written and the characters were written, not necessarily in the way that it was drawn, but it reminded me of Munden's Bar, which I thought was fun. It gave me some Grimjack, little Grimjack flavor to it, which I would like, talk about that. I would love to see, and I realize it's probably never coming back and we're not getting any new Grimjack, but I would love to see LaRocca drawing Grimjack. I think that'd be fun. But
man, you can sign me up for anything. Lerosa, I don't know this LaRocca guy you're talking about. Lerosa illustrates.
I may be pronouncing it wrong. My bad.
LaRocca is a different artist. That's LaRocca, I think.
Oh, am I conflating two humans?
You are.
Well, fuck me running.
Yeah, right.
I'm gonna give up.
It happens.
Ernie Ray. But
sounds like you stuck around a bar a little too long.
If this is what you are looking for, then this is the best version of this thing that you're going to get, that I've seen written in a long time, and we've read characters like this. I just think I'm not in a place to where like I'm just kind of mentally exhausted and
tired of dealing with shitty people. I get it.
Yeah, especially, and no offense to y'all, because y'all are two amazing examples of people who are both empathetic and thoughtful and intelligent. I'm just really getting tired of trying to find mental excuses for shitty white dudes, shitty straight white dudes being shitty straight white dudes. And I think maybe that's my own personal hang up with this. It's because I don't see you like redeeming, like I don't want him to become.
Well, that begs the question: why are you trying? Yeah, why are you trying to do that?
Because he's the main character, and I don't know if that makes him the protagonist or some type of like anti-hero thing. But he is.
I mean, he's the protagonist. But why are you trying to find redeemable qualities? So it seems clear that you're not supposed to do that. It's like literally in the title.
But he's going to save the world, right? Like if he's
no, we don't know that.
Yeah, I mean, you don't. yeah, I mean, who's to say?
We don't know that he's going to do that.
So okay, so if he fucks up and doesn't save the world, if he doesn't find some way to be the unlovable and unlikely hero of this story, I'll take that back, because it went to the right place, and it was like, nope, if you're a piece of shit, you can't succeed, or you're not gonna. And in that case, I'll take everything back. But it seems like he's being thrown into a task to where, like they say, it's there's no options. Either he succeeds or he fails. And if he fails, something terrible is going to happen. And if he succeeds, then like on some level, this is the one thing. And I think you get a little bit of that in I don't know if you guys read it, but in the after the story's over, and Rick Remender's laying out his character profile for Ernie Ray. He says, yeah, like this dude he's a garbage person. He's a piece of shit. But in his character profile, underneath all of that, underneath the handlebar mustache, underneath the alcoholism and the self-induced abuse, all he wants is there's this unspoken need for respect, validation, and love. And I think that's poetic. I think that's great in fiction. I just think that that's been played out, because if those things exist, and he's purposely putting that on the page, at least at the end of the story, as far as this like character profile, then those seeds are there. And I'm not in a place that I am willing to do the emotional or mental work to look for the good in despicable humans.
I don't think that you have to, though. I think that it's the writer's job to take you down that path if that's what they're going to do. Yeah. You don't have to do the mental gymnastics. Now, if you have to, then the writer's not doing their job.
Well, no, but I also like I said, and this is just completely on me. Like this is my own mental state right now. But I'm not only not willing to do the work, I don't necessarily want to watch somebody else do the work either. I just like there's just lots of like I don't know.
So Caleb's philosophy is if you suck, you just suck forever.
Yeah, and don't have a character arc. I like my stories without character arcs.
No, I mean, bro, you know me well enough to know that is not the case. I'm just in this particular moment with this particular subject matter, I'm just not in the mood to read it.
Okay.
And maybe
that's a fail.
Maybe it can be something that I revisit coming forward.
No, you can't. But this is it. You're done.
So here's a good example of what I'm talking
Craig,
about.
Don't let him.
And this is where fiction and reality meet. Do you know who's drawing the second issue of this?
No.
It's James Robinson. I think James Robinson. It's one of the Robinsons, and it's the particular Robinson who I want to say it's the guy who originally did Airboy. Is a MAGA flag waving, homophobic, thinks women need to just shut the fuck up, Trump supporting douchebag garbage person. And that's my own opinion. So if you're listening to this and maybe you're like low key voting for Trump and somehow you still listen to this podcast, I appreciate it. Thanks for the numbers. But like Remender hired this dude knowing those things. And I'm not picking up the second, regardless if I was going to keep up with this, I just, contract. I'm not buying anything that Robinson does because that's a choice I'm making with my wallet. I'm not spending the money to support on whatever, pre-ordering or whatever, somebody who's got abhorrent issues. It's the same reason I don't shop at Chick-fil-A. Same reason I don't buy Chick-fil-A. Same reason I don't go to Hobby Lobby. And that's a personal choice. I'm not saying anybody else shouldn't, but I'm also not going to do the mental work of justifying for myself finding a good reason to read this book drawn by a shitty person, just like I'm right now not in the mood to find something good about Ernie Ray, because it seems like he really is just a piece of fuck. And that
you should have led with that.
Yeah, those are two completely different issues.
No, they are, but one is a good example of where my headspace, like they both are a good example of where I'm at with these things, and the work that I'm really willing to do to experience art and to experience entertainment, because that's largely what these books are for. And in some level, I'm just not, that's a bridge I can't cross. And that's just me.
I mean, I
that's
can tell
just
you
me.
based on if that is in fact the artist that is on this book, I'm going to have a hard time buying the second issue.
No, like it's fully fledged who it is. Like he's that's who it is. And I haven't seen the rest of the 10 or 12 issues, whatever it is, but whoever is going to be in there. But it just makes me kind of just like between that and again, that's not the reason I think anybody else shouldn't read this book. If you enjoyed it, it's Rick Remender writing it, so the characterizations are going to be there. Go for it, and I want you to. I fully want you to. I am not saying this to take any type of enjoyment or depreciate anybody's experience of this book. That this totally focusing on other reasons. Like, here's another reason I just didn't fall in love with this when I read it, because it was just one of those things in the back of my mind. And I know those are two different issues, but to me, they funnel down into the same emotional work in interpreting the art and interpreting the story. And it's just not a place that I can be right now.
I mean, like I said, if he, to me, it's two different scenarios there.
Right.
You know, and it sounds like I did not know that going in, but that would certainly affect knowing that a comic skater is the second artist on it may very well have affected how you read and interpret the book.
I mean, he's got, that's interesting. I mean, you know, looking at his Twitter feed, he's got Black Lives Matter stuff posted in his Twitter feed.
Who, Remender?
Andrew Robinson.
Andrew Robinson.
Oh, well, I can't speak to that, but he's certainly made a whole bunch of other really terrible statements in other places. But even beyond that, like I said, you know, and this is somebody who, you know, doing the work I do with people who have addiction issues. Like, I'm certainly not saying that anybody who goes down a bad path is irredeemable, or that that's even something that can be judged for it. I just, like I said, in my fiction, I'm not at a place that I can be there right now. So, and that skewed my interpretation. Like all of it worked against when I was looking at this book, and that's not fair to the work. And I want to fully acknowledge and admit that, like, it's not a fair assessment, but it's there nonetheless.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I can't tell you what you should or shouldn't buy. So
I will.
But you know what all this does? What this book does is it begs the question: who else are the scumbags? Like, who? And I think this is probably going to be what leads most of our discussion through the rest of the show. But in comics, at least, or not even in comics, in the broader world of pop culture, you know, reading Ernie Ray, are there any other people who are as despicable or who are the scumbags? You know, where are they at? Because, you know, if you like this book, I can imagine that there's a handful of other stories that have characters like this, people who are going through what I can imagine, we don't know for a fact, but what I can imagine will be the character arcs. And where are they? So have you guys, actually, we'll start with Matt, because I can see Matt really, like, Matt loves these type of stories. And so why don't you tell us who these remind you of?
Well, number one on my list, the first the first character I thought about when it comes to scumbags in the comics that I've read, who jumped out at me, I mean, just in bright red letters, was from the 1986 Watchmen series by Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons. Yeah, you have to say that now, which is kind of asinine to me. But which Watchmen is it? Yeah. So Rorschach is one of the biggest fucking dirtbags in comic book history.
yeah, I would agree.
I'm gonna need you to go into that a little bit more. Like, I think he's an asshole, but he was a really judgmental. Like, I think Rorschach would have looked at people like Ernie Ray and just, like, he thought they were the worst. Like, he was hyper judgmental. He sounded a lot like me in the last 20 minutes.
So, I mean, with Rorschach, he's a fascist.
Mm-hmm.
He is literally a dirtbag. He lives in squalor. He has horrible personal hygiene. He only wants to commit violence and find excuses for doing so.
Yeah.
He's misogynistic. He's homophobic. And he's quite simply a might makes right person. And he exercises that by vigilantism. But in doing so, listening to his, reading his journal entries and what he's saying, he's looking for excuses amongst that while he's doing that to, promote violence or at least diminish those that are different from him. Like in one panel in Watchmen, he's talking about Adrian Veidt, says possible homosexual must investigate further.
Well, and when he's talking about when they're doing those flashback scenes, and when the one of the original people were, they were a lesbian couple, he makes those comments about like losing themselves to something. I forget what the exact verbiage is. I'd have to go back and look it up. But yeah, that comes through really hard right there.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, and he thinks everybody around him is a dirt bag, totally blind to his own self being that as well. So yeah, he would look at Ernie Ray and like, oh, what a scumbag, completely oblivious he's another version of that.
Right.
And Rorschach's one of my favorite characters in any series I've ever read. He's a fascinating character, but he is not a good guy, and he goes beyond an anti-hero. He's a dirtbag.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly on that. My first one is also an Alan Moore character from V for Vendetta. Alan Moore and David Lloyd. And that's V. He locks her up as a prisoner for how long, just to prove to her, just to see if he can break her.
Yeah.
I did not find many redeeming characteristics. Yeah, maybe what he was fighting for was correct, but the way he went about it was wrong in a lot of senses, as a terrorist trying to go about changing the world.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. No, he, at the end of the day, he was a terrorist.
Yeah,
that's right.
For good reason.
Right. What he was fighting for was not wrong. The way he went about it, maybe a little bit, not the correct way. And on top of that, locking her up in the prison and the things he did to her to try and break her to see if she was going to be a good partner for him. Kind of just scumbaggy.
Hyper scumbaggy.
He's a little icky.
Had a cool mask.
He did have the cool mask. He's just a little icky.
So I was thinking about this, and there were some things that were really standoutish. I was thinking about different groups, and a lot of Garthinas came to mind. But there was one character that popped in my head just kind of off the cuff, and I was like, oh, you know what? I wouldn't normally like fill him into the dirty, grimy part of it, but scumbag nonetheless. And that is the Purple Man from Marvel Comics. And he's kind of came into pop cultural attention over the last few years because of what happened in Jessica Jones. But you think about what this guy's power is, what he could use his power for. But Kilgrave is just he's a monster. Like he has this thing where he can make you do whatever you want or he wants you to do. And instead of using that to help people benefit themselves, he uses it to steal and to rape, to get people to harm themselves, to gain political power, to gain, and I say that he's not even doing it for to become the center of attention. He's literally doing it for this Machiavellian behind the scenes. I want to be the quiet man behind the curtain who controls things. What he put Jessica through was just, maniacal. Like there really is no coming back from something like that. Some of the best storyline, like I'm thinking about, did you guys ever read Thunderbolts? Because he was in that.
Read parts of the Thunderbolts. I never was on it like the entire time or read all of it.
No.
It really shows off how much of he just like, this is somebody that Batman should just put a bullet in if he were in the DC universe, kind of like the Joker, but
Batman put a bullet in.
That's what I'm saying. Like, it's one of those situations, like, why do people keep letting
I think you mean Jason Todd.
No, I'm saying, like, okay, so Batman keeps letting the Joker go, keeps trying to redeem him, and everybody's like, no, dude, if you would just fucking kill him, this would end. So you look at people like the Purple Man, and you're just like no, quit being a hero. Like there's no way this guy can make up for what he's done. He's a lost cause. And you see that a lot in the Thunderbolts because Kilgrave is just manipulating these people into doing whatever he wants them to do for a variety of reasons in that book. But you go back into Alias and you see it there too, and stuff that he does just for his own personal decrepitness.
Really, he's icky also.
Yeah, it gives you the heebie-jeebies. Like, it makes your skin crawl. But he's also kind of fascinating in that sense. Not somebody, like I said, in a different time, in a different place, like that. I'll go back and I'll read those stories and I'll just be like, okay. And I don't think that there's anything trying to redeem him in those stories, but he's also clearly the antagonist. But still, I just don't know that I want to be in a place where I can read that at the moment. But just like, just a fucking garbage person.
That qualifies.
Yeah, it definitely qualifies. Matt, who's your number 2?
So number 2 on my list, starting in 1975, one Chris Claremont began writing for Marvel's X-Men.
I don't know that Chris Claremont's a scumbag.
It was illustrated by Dave Cockrum, who's also not a scumbag. Different artists apparently came in the future, but specifically in this run, Senator Robert Kelly, I think, is a pretty good example of a scumbag.
Yep.
Using
his title starts with senator, so
right, and he uses his position in the government to persecute a class of people as subhuman and violently persecutes them, and also uses that as a platform to elevate his power within the country. So all my favorite reasons to hate people right there in one person. Yeah.
And I really wish they'd keep politics out of comics.
Yeah. Well, it just started happening, Craig.
It's a new thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's a total incomplete scumbag.
Yeah. That is a character that I absolutely despise in the Marvel universe.
Yeah. Using a place of authority to declassify people as humans.
Yeah, and to motivate the general public to incite violence against other citizens of the country. I mean,
yes,
you forget this is a really good example. When you
was he drawn orange?
Was he drawn orange? I don't remember him being drawn orange. Yeah,
it took me a minute, but now I caught up. I'm here with you.
At boiled down to its basics on why that's so wrong, even on a legislative level. These are the citizenry in your country, and you're actively persecuting against them. These people pay your salary. They pay your salary with their taxable income, and you are persecuting them. I mean, it's just how wrong it is on so many levels. It's like, when people like this happen in real life, it's like people like to throw around the term politically correct. Oh, I like so-and-so because he's not politically correct. Well, if you're in politics, it's called politically correct because there's a correct way to do it, because these are the people you work for. People seem to forget that if you're a position in government, you work for the public. You're a public servant.
That's right.
People seem to forget what that is.
Well, yeah, but also when they say politically correct, what they're really meaning is I want to not have ramifications for talking down to somebody.
Yeah, exactly. And when you're in a position of power in the government, you give up that right.
That's right. Or you should.
Yeah.
Yeah. He is an icky person also.
What a scumbag.
Exactly.
My next icky person is Jimmy Regent, who is a Garth Ennis and Russ Braun character from Aftershock Comics.
Oh,
this was Jimmy's Bastards.
Yeah.
This guy is a James Bond caricature that has been such a womanizer that all of his bastard children get together to bring him down and kill him. And we're talking about hundreds and hundreds of children form a criminal enterprise just to bring Jimmy down. That's pretty icky in my book.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a fun series.
It was a really good series, and it's well worth the read. But yeah, he's a total and complete scumbag with no redeeming qualities that, you still find yourself at the end of it wanting him to win, because the opposite is the world gets. They switched everybody's sexes, their gender in this book. They had a weapon that made all the males turn female and the females turn male. It was an interesting storyline for sure.
Well, as most Garth Ennis storylines are.
Yeah.
That just made me think of a character I wish I'd have thought about before. I'll have to see if I can drum it up before it gets back around to my turn again. But have you guys noticed something that all of our scumbags have had in common so far?
What, that they've been men?
They've all been men. All
weird.
Well, that is weird, but it's not something that you can say is wholly attributable to men. In a big way, it is. A lot of ways it is. But there is one character in comics that I think is actually a pretty popular character right now that I would say wholly fits the position of scumbag. And that is Amanda Waller.
I knew you were going to say that.
Amanda Waller is a scumbag.
She is.
You think about this character, this person that is in a position of authority, like we've already established, abuses. I don't even know that you can say abuses that authority. She uses the authority that she's meaning to use in the way that she's meaning to use it. But I think the fact that she has that job makes her a scumbag. I mean, her whole purpose is to take away the free will of any of
terrible people.
Yeah, of terrible people. But in doing so, also skirts around the justice system. Like there's no idea. Like she shits on the idea of due process, which is kind of at least from my perspective is kind of like but like she
due process for who?
For these criminals. I mean, they are. Yeah, again, I'm not saying that the people that look, even criminals have rights, right? Like even the scumbags have there has to be a process for them. And in a lot of ways, well, I guess what happens, the way the people...
No, we've already established that you don't believe they're redeemable.
Oh, so. Only a few of them.
I'm totally messing with you, Kevin.
No, you're
so
good.
I actually disagree with this one.
Okay.
This to me, like, this is a good example of why the difference between a villain or anti-hero and a scumbag. A scumbag's in my mind, completely is a separate category of villain. And the reason I say that for her, if she were doing this against private citizens, if she had private citizens, taken from the streets and was indenturing them this way, then yes. But the fact that she is doing this against violent career criminals with murder rap sheets, it's still an abuse of power. It's still not good.
Okay.
But if she were doing this against truly innocent people, that would elevate it to scumbaggery to me. So this one I just disagree with based on the premise
Okay.
of who she's going after. Because scumbags, for example, I wouldn't put her in the same category as, say, a propagator of sex slavery. That's a scumbag.
No.
I wouldn't put her in the same category as Senator Kelly. For that reason.
I agree with Caleb on this one, to be honest. I think she's a scumbag.
So you think she's just as bad as Senator Kelly?
So
I think there's different levels of bad and different levels of scumbag.
That's my point.
I think
that's my point. There are different.
Yeah.
So
I think taking anyone's rights, or there's due process in this country, and even if they are convicted felons, I'm pretty sure that the Constitution doesn't allow for us turning them into killers against their own will.
No, that's the 13th Amendment. Violent. It says that that's a no-no.
Yeah, I'm not saying. Yeah, I'm not saying it's not bad. I'm just saying,
I get that.
Is it the same category as Senator Kelly?
I don't know. I don't know that I would say, because like with Senator Kelly, both the ends and the means are abhorrent, right? Like the thing that he's working towards is bigotry. Like he wants that, and the means that he's going to get there are also abhorrent. And maybe that's the formula. Like I get what you're saying, because with Amanda Waller, the end goal is safety, prosperity, protection of people. But to me, and this like I'm still on the side of her being a scumbag. If your means, the means don't justify the end. If you have to sacrifice, or if you have to sacrifice your personal spirit, if you have to sacrifice your liberties, if you have to sacrifice your personal constitutions and the constitution of the law, then the end result of that is going to also not have its own constitution. It's not like it loses its value if you. So
you feel that being done, that action being taken against career criminals with murder rap sheets is the same value as doing that against private innocent citizens?
The same value? No. The same effect? Possibly. Because again, you're talking about, in one case, you're talking about somebody who's doing things extrajudiciously, which is terrifying and wrong and horrifying. The other thing is saying, hey, no, you can do this judiciously. You've got the power of the sovereign behind you backing it, which is all, it's terrifying and scummy in its own way. I was going to make the allusion to another Watchmen character who I think is, and I hope I'm not, I wasn't going to yet, but I think this is a good spot to say it. But Adrian Veidt from Watchmen, what he was shooting for, world peace, an end of the nuclear race, the stopping of the Cold War, a net gain of life instead of a net loss of life down the line, that's a beautiful idea, right? Like he wanted world peace. He wanted to end hunger. He wanted to end the terrible things that happen when world powers go head to head. I get that. The means did not justify the end. He murdered thousands of people. He made people do things against their will. He took away their free will of both good and bad people. You have to imagine that, when New York was, what happened in New York happened, or what happened to the metropolitan areas happened, that there were some really shitty people who died. But he made that choice himself. And again, I realize that's not the same thing as a government entity making it, but he did it for what he thought was good cause. I have no doubt in my mind that Amanda Waller thinks that she's doing a good thing for a good purpose. I just particularly think that the means, the saying, hey, you have to, even if you are the worst person on the planet, I don't think that any form of subjugation is valid or not scummy. Personally, like, that's just me.
I agree.
And so that's what makes her.
Yeah, I agree. It's not valid. But putting her in the same category as, say, Rorschach or Senator Kelly is just it just doesn't yeah. I don't see it.
Well, I think
Scumbag
that you have to allow for the fact that there's different levels of scumbaggedness.
Right. Oh, for sure.
And I get what you're saying, Matt. You went on a different level, and I totally get that.
Well, who else you got, Matt?
Well, next I have, let's see, I'm going to get my list up here. So this is current from the 2006 series, mostly from Dynamite Comics. The Boys by Garth Ennis and Derek Robertson. Mm-hmm. Bill Butcher. Bill Butcher is
really
a completely deplorable character. I love the character. It's another one of these examples. It's one of my favorite characters in comics, but he is absolutely deplorable. I mean, he is a fucking scumbag. That's one of my hangups with the show. They watered him down in the show, which wasn't surprising. I didn't figure they'd have the guts to really make essentially the main character be totally irredeemable. And he's as bad as the Homelander in the original series.
That's who I thought you were going to go with when you started this out.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Well, if you finish The Boys and you don't think Bill Butcher's a scumbag, I don't know who you are.
Yeah.
The Homelander is just right up front with it throughout the whole series. Bill Butcher isn't.
I mean, that's fair.
Yeah, I can see, at least on some level, the Homelander has the courage of his conviction to just be who he is.
Well, he doesn't need courage. That's the thing about the Homelander. Yeah. He doesn't need courage because he's invincible. But so, I mean, I know you never finished the series, Craig. Did you finish it, Caleb?
The Boys. Wait, we talking about when you say the series,
the book.
Okay, the book. Yeah. I have finished the book. Yes.
Okay. You remember what Bill Butcher did at the end of the book?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, is that not scumbaggery behavior?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. Yeah.
But now I will say in that book, and yes, he is a scumbag. I'm not diverging from the fact that he's a scumbag. I think he fits that criteria.
Craig, your turn.
But I will say in the book, at least in the last in the book, they let you know that he's not coming back. Like he's fully embracing it towards the end of the book, and I think the book is fully embracing it and saying, hey, like this is where he's at, and if you thought that there was going to be some happy ending here, then you haven't been paying attention, and he's not. So I like the way that they leaned into it towards the end.
Oh yeah.
So my next one, I don't know if this will be controversial or not, but I'm going to go with Thorin Oakenshield from The Hobbit. This guy, this dwarf, is a complete and total asshole scumbag throughout the way. Even in the book, I know you can justify his end actions based on having the dragon sickness, but even before that point, every time we're in danger, we'll send Bilbo to go handle it. Not us dwarves that have been fighting our whole lives. Bilbo, you go take care of that. You go inspect that. You go look and see what those trolls are doing. Dude's an asshole. And specifically in the movies, he's written that way. More so than the book. And acted that way. And then, he... long before he gets the dragon sickness in the movie, even, he's already straight up lying to everybody to get what he wants. His end goal is the only thing that matters.
Okay.
To the point that I can't even watch the Hobbit movies.
Oh, well, there's plenty of reasons for that.
Well, his character arc alone is. I cannot root for this guy in any way, shape, or form throughout these movies.
Yeah. Interesting.
I've never thought of it that way, but I get it. I get where you're coming from. I can see it. Well, Craig broke the levee on getting out of comic characters, so that's where I'm going to next. And we've already alluded to this in our conversation of the Scumbag, but I think you will find no better caricature, no better depiction of the shittiest person that you will ever meet, short of Frank from Shameless. Now, Craig, I know you've watched Shameless. Matt, have you ever watched Shameless?
No, but I know of it.
Okay. So
yeah, I've watched the first few seasons. I haven't watched all of it. But
Frank has dedicated his life to crawling through the bottom of the barrel, so to speak. He puts in a massive amount of work to get out of work. He puts in a massive amount of energy into being irredeemable, being despicable. He is a lifelong. So I don't look at most people, the majority of people with addiction issues, as I think it's a sickness, right? Like I think that it's treatable. But Frank has kind of dedicated his life and personality to being a quote unquote addict. Like he seeks out addiction. He seeks out alcoholism, and he seeks out bad behavior on purpose and for no other reason than the fact that he knows it's going to hurt the people around him. Like he does it. It's not that he's hurting the people around him because he's an addict. He's an addict in a lot of ways because it hurts the people around him. And that's just super shitty. He is the father of 7 children, all by, as far as I know, all by the same woman, Monica, who was also a drug addict, but she had mental health issues, which is why she was trying to treat them with drugs. He uses his kids as pawns on the south side of Chicago. He does not care for their health or well-being, unless he needs to care for their health and well-being for something that benefits him. He sees his kids anytime that they start succeeding. He sees them as a vehicle to take advantage of that situation. He doesn't care if the heat's on. He doesn't, he sleeps on the street half the time because he just can't make it home. The most debaucherous things that you can think of, he gets himself into those situations, and genuinely does so for the sole purpose, if for nothing else, of downward mobility. Like that's the only thing I can think of. Like, because he is not trying to climb out. All of his problems are somebody else's fault. Everything is a burden on him. He takes advantage of any charity that he can to, like, he has every stereotype of misapplied bigotry to the impoverished manifested in a single person who just is those things. And it is on some level hilarious to watch, but the show is written to a point that it's also heartbreaking to watch, because you see it, and you see it raw, and you see the effect, the affect and the effect of this on the people, on his sons and his daughters, on the people who continually try to look for ways to save him, but he doesn't want to be saved. And well, in many ways, it's, I guess I'm going to be a little bit hypocritical here, because it's kind of like Scumbag. It's kind of like that little epitaph that Remender put in the back of his book. You see a sense of, you see a seed, a bare glimpse, just a minuscule, an atom of compassion, an atom of a decent person. This on almost the submolecular level, there is just a hint of human decency that you're just wondering if it's going to grow. And it never does. And in fact, it affects all the people around him. And to a point, his kids are just as shitty as he is. And what the show does, like, honestly, the whole cast of characters could fit into this, but at least there's, because no one in the show is redeemable in any way, shape, or form, and they all just continue to be shitty despite themselves. But he more so than any of them, and he's the kind of the impetus of that. through a series of not just being a poor parent, but just being a poor human. But it's hilarious. So
it is funny.
I think
he is a scumbag.
I think Matt would dig this show if you ever get time to watch it. You would find great humor in the brokenness of these people. Because
stuff like that really bums me out to watch something that's all about. I mean, that kind of subject matter. That kind of stuff usually that's why I've avoided that show quite on purpose. Is it just the subject matter just seems just. I mean, just nothing about a show about nothing but repulsive people and the repulsive actions. I just can't. It's just. Ugh.
I can see that a little bit.
That's just a personal hang up of mine. I just can't.
I respect those. If you get nothing else out of this episode, it's that I respect personal reasons to dislike things. Well, you got anything else on your list, Brad?
Well, I've got several things on my list, but I have to mention this one. I have to make sure I mention this one before we run out of time. 1950s Professor Frederick Wortham is a scumbag.
Okay.
Of immense magnitude from my own personal view. Just as a reminder who this is the reason we got the comic books code. And the reason that Bill Gaines' EC Comics went out of business is because of the political pursuit that Dr. Wortham made against comic books as a entity, and used the government platform to have this McCarthy-esque pursuit of the medium, like it was deteriorating society and causing delinquentism in the youth in this country. Used horrible bent quote unquote data to quote prove his point, and a lot of people's lives were ruined as a result of it, and the comic book industry was radically affected for decades because of this completely fabricated, paranoid asshole whose views for some reason never questioned. And here's just another example of what I view as one of the most evil things in this country, when people use political platforms to persecute other people's freedoms.
Yes.
I mean, it's just that is a offense that I just cannot make excuses for in any way, shape, or form. I mean, these people are scumbags.
Yeah. In a way, shape, or form, it's McCarthyism, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's essentially that's what it is. Yeah. Persecution with persecution for persecution's sake. There's no validity to it at all whatsoever for something as benign as a comic book.
And they
ruined people's lives.
Well, and we've seen this played out through different forms of things that we all love, whether it's comic books or rock and roll music, or pick your Dungeons and Dragons. They've picked different things throughout our lifespan, or within the last 100 years in this country, to just blame the general youth behavior on.
Yeah, like when heavy metal music was the reason that crime existed. For example, what's hilarious to me about that is at least American culture had evolved to the point to where censorship and actually doing away with these quote offensive music pieces didn't happen. They were just given a label, but hilariously enough, the label skyrocketed the sales in every one of them. That is a bit of irony that I'll never get sick of.
Well, that's the same as putting a pentagram on the cover of an album for a band that had nothing to do with Satanism at all, but wanted to sell more albums because it would offend parents. You know?
Well, I mean, I'm talking about how they mandated this sticker. Like, this is really going to keep this this is going to keep this material out of people's hands that can be harmed by it. I mean, that's, so the millions upon millions of dollars and all the time they spent on this, and they actually propagated the very things they were trying to diminish because of their ineptitude.
Well, that was the start of the trend for things like Grand Theft Auto when they tried to go after it, and it became one of the highest selling video games ever. All they've ever do anymore is bring publicity to these things.
Yeah, you tell the American public they cannot have something, they will get it.
That's right.
See drugs.
Well, I was going to
drugs.
say not only drugs, but like you can even go kind of farther than that and just see cigarettes. Especially children, people who are adolescents, who are looking to be rebellious, who want to like things that are in some way bad.
Yeah, there's a million examples of this. I mean, there's a million, but the drug industry is unfathomably trillions of dollars. Nothing compares to the illicit drug market when it comes to, quote, you can't have these things, and people get them.
Yeah.
Alcohol in the 20s, 30s.
Yeah.
Prohibition across the board. It's just in many ways, and I'm not.
It does not work in America.
No, not really. Masks.
Well, I say we call it on that biggest real life scumbag. Unless you got one more you want to throw out there, Caleb.
I was going to end with the Red Skull because that was the closest I could say to Hitler without just saying Hitler. But, the Red Skull is a piece of shit. He's evil incarnate, he's the worst. And I think you can just end it at that.
There you go.
That was the last one on my list. There are some really scummy people.
Oh yeah, I mean, I had Teague Lawless from the Criminal series, from Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips. I had Joffrey Baratheon from Game of Thrones.
Good one. Yeah.
Possibly the most hated child in all of literature, I would say.
I was gonna say Professor X, but I waffled on it.
You fucking jerk.
And so was Professor
I
X.
had Dirty Harry Callahan on my list.
Yeah.
There's just some shitty people. I
also had Jason Todd.
No.
Yeah.
While y'all were talking, I just pulled up a list. I was Googling like worst people ever, and then like you should take the time.
No, thank you.
Ferris Bueller. He's a total scumbag.
Ferris Bueller.
Marty McFly. He almost fucked his mom.
Ferris Bueller for sure, man. He bullied his friend, and I don't want to get into it, but he's a scumbag.
Stole a car.
The bastard.
Tricked his girlfriend into didn't trick her, but forced her to skip the day with him. Got his sister arrested. What else did he do in that day?
He's a con artist. That's what it should have been called. Ferris Bueller, con artist.
See, total scumbag.
That's how he got a day off. Well, all right.
Should have just watched Weird Science. That's what you should have done.
There you go.
You know what? Half of Alan Rickman's characters, but not Alan Rickman.
True.
And not the ones that you would expect. But anyway, all right. Well, are we ready to kind of circle this thing around and talk about some books that are coming out next week?
I think so.
Yeah.
Well, all right. So as always, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, new comic books hit the shelves or hit whatever platform you buy them off of, be it digital or maybe you pick them up somewhere else. I don't know what you do. It's not my job to tell you what to do with your life. Just make sure you're paying for comics and not stealing them. That's the only thing I can tell you. As always, we are tentatively excited, hesitantly excited, might I say, of the things that are going to come out from week to week. We haven't read them. We don't know if they're going to be super good or not. Maybe we're super excited about them and they just don't strike our fancy in a certain way. Maybe we're not super excited about it, but it turns out to be the best thing that we're ever going to read. Who can say? Who knows? Well, you can't say that because we'll never read Watchmen again. And that's just facts. But this next week, there are some books coming out that we are going to tell you to, hedge your bets, plan your menu a little bit, and bring home. And hopefully they will treat you as well as we want to. I'm going to kick us off because I don't want anybody stealing my shit. Because I'm going to be selfish. So this next week, straight out of Dark Horse Comics, the next chapter, the continuation, if you will, of this amazing world of Black Hammer that Jeff Lemire has been orchestrating, you are going to pick up, because you have good taste and you're a good person and you follow my advice, you're going to pick up Colonel Weird, the Cosmagog. Number one, it's a miniseries. I want to say there's 4 issues of it. This is written by the great Jeff Lemire. I shouldn't have to sing his praises. I shouldn't have to tell you why you read most of what Jeff Lemire writes. You exist in the world. You know how good he is. But the second reason, and I would say for me, even more of a reason to pick this up, is because it is being artistically designed and produced and gifted to the world by one Mr. Tyler Crook. I am a huge fan of Tyler Crook. If you have listened to this podcast long enough that you know that when it comes to most things, if you give me watercolors, I'm going to be a little bit more lenient on it. I think it's beautiful. One of my favorite series of all time, certainly of the last decade, is Harrow County, that was drawn and painted by Tyler Crook. I think he's phenomenal. I think he's fabulous. This world looks at one of the more interesting characters inside the Black Hammer universe, Colonel Weird. He's a cosmonaut. He is somebody who exists not only in space but also in time, and he jumps back and forth through it all. And that kind of gives him this disjointed, never really knows who or where he's at. And everybody looks at him like he's this broken brain, like he's almost schizophrenic in a way. He's fragmented, but he seems to think he has it together, at least on some point. And this is going to follow a little bit of his adventures, to see what he's been up to and what exactly happened in that mind of his that makes him the way he is. I can't wait. I'm already in love with this book, and I've not even flipped a single page. So pick it up.
Matt, you go next.
So I'm looking forward to That Texas Blood #5 from Chris Condon and Jacob Phillips from Image Comics. This, this story, I'm really digging this. It's not a fantastical story. It's a street level crime story. The main protagonist, again, is an old sheriff who probably should have retired already just due to physical limitations. So how he's going to handle this criminal element in his Texas town, I'm really looking forward to as this story moves forward. That's just a trope that I've yet to get tired of, is basically the old man, whether it be an old warrior, an old lawman, using his experience in fighting those elements in place of, what he's lost physically.
Sounds like a good time. If you were going to end a book called Sex Criminals, what issue would you end it on? Yes, they skip forward 39 issues to end this book on exactly that issue. Mm-hmm. So Matt Fraction and Chip Zdarsky, Image Comics. I'm not going to tell you to pick up this book if you haven't read the rest of the series, but I am going to tell you to pick up the first trade and read this book, because you will enjoy it.
Co-signed. I enjoy this book. That's funny. I didn't realize they were skipping ahead to 69 just to end it on that. That's hilarious.
They are.
That's funny as shit. Like, I'm tickled pink over that.
I mean, it's Matt Fraction and Chip Zdarsky. What else are they going to do?
I don't know why we wouldn't have expected it. Although I got to say, I much prefer 68 over 69. I like 68 a lot better. That's where you blow me and I owe you one.
You're selfish.
I'm lazy. No, I'm just lazy. That's what I'm just tired, man. 2020 has exhausted me. I just want to lay there for a little bit. So, well, all right. Well, we hope you have enjoyed this exploration of the shittiest people in the world that are not us. I'm not talking about us. I'm talking about the characters. See previous episode, to borrow a phrase from Matt. we certainly have enjoyed doing it. Man, I can't tell you how much I love doing this podcast, and I'm saying that to my co-host as much as to anybody listening. I really do get a lot of enjoyment out of it. Brings me to a good mindset. If you enjoy this kind of banter, if you enjoy talking about funny books, talking about pop culture, exploring the characters, talking about art, all of the above, come check us out. We're on Facebook. You can search out our group. We're Southern Fried Geekery. We're not hard to find. You can hang out with me and about 221 other people, I think is what the number's up to right now, who are posting memes, talking about funny stuff, chatting about news, getting into books, just what have you. You can see what we're reading. Sometimes we post panels. Sometimes we post pictures when we can all get together. We post all kinds of stuff of our misadventures around the world over on our Instagram and our Twitter pages. We're at SFG Podcast on both of those. And, should you be so moved, should you have commentary that maybe is going to be longer than what you want to put in a Facebook post or what have you, maybe you want to dive deep on the rift between Matt and I and are wondering if Amanda Waller is really a scumbag or if she's just a shitty person. Maybe there's space in between. Discuss it. Shoot us an email about it. We're southernfriedgeekery@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. Other than that, I got nothing else, guys. We ready to land this plane?
Yep.
End it.
All right, let's shoot it in the back of the head.
We're landing a plane.
Who's going to fly this thing? Anyway, go forth and love some comics. Matt, did you listen to last week's episode?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Did you hear what happened at the end there?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
Did you like that? Did you like
that?
That
was funny. Yeah. Was that spur of the moment or did y'all plan that?
Nope.
No, we did not plan it.
Off the cuff.